Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on 5 ways to get going with Google. And I hope you're all healthy and staying safe during this challenging period of COVID-19. I'm Bob Hogan, today's webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is Nalini Gulzaran. And more on Nalini in just a minute, but first, if I could have the next slide, some brief information on SCORE. SCORE has 320 chapters across the country and over 11,000 volunteers. We are part of the Small Business Administration of the federal government. And locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, subject matter expertise. And we offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, which typically can be face-to-face, but in today's environment is video, or it can be by telephone, email. You can also request a mentor by going to our website and hit on the link, on the button there that's called Request a Mentor, and someone will get back to you for that free counseling. We also offer a wide range of educational programs, over 150 across the country. Lastly, we have extensive resources on our website, which includes a network of subject matter experts that you can have at your disposal. Our next live webinar will be this Thursday, April the 23rd at noon. And the topic is running a successful creative business, legal and tax tips, with Cliff Enico presenting. And you can find more specifics again on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. I'd like to also bring to your attention on our website that we have a large number of archived webinars on a wide range of business topics, including topics that are really applicable in today's COVID-19 environment. As we've mentioned to you on the chat feature, we have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, and you can use the chat feature at any time to submit a question, and Nalini will take them at the end of her presentation. We're going to respect your time and finish up at 1 o'clock today, and the session is being recorded, and you'll have access to that link within the next 48 hours, again at our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Nalini Gulzaran is the founder of EdgeSpace Marketing, and Nalini has a passion for transforming business practices and streamlining communications. She has a degree in computer information systems and over 10 years of experience in information technology, project management, and communications. Before becoming an entrepreneur, she was an associate COO for a division of a global financial institution. Currently, she provides website development, social media marketing, and SEO services to small business and nonprofits. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to Nalini. Nalini, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good day today. So we're going to talk a little bit about 5 ways to get going with Google. In today's environment, we're all working from home, and we're now using tools that we may or may not already be familiar with. So today we're going to go over some basic Gmail features, using your Google Calendar, and how to create a Google form, how to use Google Docs and Google Sheets, and how to share that Google Doc and Google Sheet with others. So the way today is going to work is I'm going to do probably about 10 or 15 minutes in the presentation, and then we're going to do some live demo. A lot of this is actually easier if I kind of show you how it works. So as you have specific questions, we can try to tackle them within the time allotted. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some basic Gmail features and some tips and tricks. A lot of us probably already use Gmail, and we probably already know how to do it, but there's some little nuances that might make your life a little bit easier if you were able to use them. So one of the things that Gmail allows is that you can create your conversations together or separate. So what that means is that the chain of conversation is all lumped together. And when we get into the demo, I can show you how that looks. So basically, if you email me and then I email you back, that is in one chain. That conversation is together, as opposed to seeing 2 separate emails as line items in your email box. Some people prefer to have them separate. It might make it easier to find later. Other people would like them together so that the actual conversation is in one place. Google can help you determine which emails are important. What Google does is their artificial intelligence is working to see what emails you open most often, who they come from, do you have that contact already saved? These are all indicators for Google to figure out which emails are important. Now, it can go astray, and sometimes you see emails pop up in your primary mailbox that you don't want to see, and it's up to you to kind of reshuffle that as you go. But for the most part, Google does start to determine which emails are important based on your patterns. If you hover over an email, you can quickly reply, delete, archive, or snooze that message. And we'll talk about snooze in a few minutes. But this is a little quick trick on your desktop so that you don't necessarily have to open the email, or if perhaps somebody asks you a question in the subject line, it makes it a little bit easier to just kind of navigate through without having to spend those extra few minutes opening emails. You can undo a sent message. Now you have 10 seconds, and I'll show you when we do the demo how you do that. You have to be paying attention to where the pop-up shows up on the left-hand side of your screen, but you have 10 seconds to undo that send before it gets delivered. So sometimes I do it all the time. I'm typing an email and I hit the wrong button and it's sent before I was finished typing it. Now I can quickly unsend it, finish typing it, and then obviously send it again. Smart replies. This is also known as Smart Compose. This is another way Google is making your life a little bit easier. Some people may already have this feature turned on. Other people may need to turn it on depending on your settings. But what this means is, so for example, when I'm emailing Bob, if Bob emailed me first, or I emailed Bob and the name is in the subject line, the to line, Gmail picks that up and starts to pre-fill "Hi Bob," or based on how I normally address emails, "Dear Bob," things like that. As you start to fill in certain sentences like "Please see attached," it might fill that in for you. As Google really starts to figure out how people normally email and how sometimes you email, it will start to fill that in. It really can cut down some of your time and efficiency. And then, as we've mentioned earlier, snooze emails. So sometimes you get an email and you're just not ready to answer that right now. You might be in the middle of something, it's very important, but you want to be notified again. The snooze feature allows you to snooze it for a later time. It goes to a folder that says snoozed emails, so you can go get it if you want it. But what it does is it brings it back into your inbox at the time that you set for the snooze. So sometimes for me that comes in handy, like if I got a bunch of emails right before the score call and I want to make sure I don't lose sight of them because I get a lot of emails, I could have it remind me at 3 o'clock this afternoon during my next email check window, so those pop up right first. And then nudge. So these are reminders. So sometimes you get an email and a few days have gone by. Google will actually automatically nudge you by just bringing it back to the top of your inbox with a little alert that says, "You received this email 3 days ago. Do you want to respond?" Or do you sometimes, I'll get a notification that I sent an email and I haven't heard anything back. They'll even say, "You sent this email 5 days ago. Would you like to send a follow-up?" And that comes in handy because sometimes I do need to follow up with folks and other times I don't. So it's a good feature to have as a reminder. Google Calendar. Google Calendar makes it really easy to set up meetings. And now a lot of us are using Zoom. You can integrate your Zoom with Google Calendar. So some quick things, obviously you schedule meetings and appointments. Whether or not you want to invite someone, you can set it on your calendar. You can set different colors. We'll look at that in the demo section. You can include details about the map location. This comes in very handy if you have your phone connected to your different apps. So if I have a meeting at the Ferguson Library at 12 o'clock and I have it in my phone set up with the calendar invite, I can then just click the location button in the Google Calendar and it'll open up the Maps app to send my directions where I have to go. So that can be very handy. It's also very important if you're meeting someone else so that they know where they're going. You can set reminders and you can customize them, whether it's 10 minutes before, 1 day before. It's up to you. What is your preference? I believe Google defaults to 10 minutes before, and then you can change that frequency. You can invite guests. A lot of times Google might pop up with, this is a person outside of your network. If you're using Gmail for business like I am, and I invite clients to meetings, sometimes I get that pop up, but it comes in, it's really a great feature because I can invite my clients, send the Zoom information, because now we're doing everything virtually. And previously it would include the location so that there was no mix up and we ended up at the wrong Starbucks or different places, because that's also happened before. And of course, your guests get an email invitation. It also comes in handy when you are either running late, you need to follow up. You can actually send an email from the meeting invite to your invitees. So sometimes it just makes the time a little faster so that you don't have to open up a new email, find the names, things like that. Google Forms. Google Forms make it very easy to gather information. So what does that mean? You might use it for registration information, for surveys. I have found a way to use it for new clients. I have them fill out their basic information, and this way I don't have notebooks lying around with lots of client details. I have it in a secure Google form. It transfers to a spreadsheet where you can see the view, and it makes it really easy to track things. I know lots of people that use it for survey responses. Sometimes you're trying to figure out the best time for a meeting, or now virtual hangouts. It can you can track things that way. And over on the right, you have some basics, right? You start the form, you title it, you create some questions, you can view responses as they come in, or you can create a spreadsheet to actually view everything as once. There is a preview button so that you can see what your form will look like. There's some customization options from colors to backgrounds and things like that. We'll take a look at that as we go in. There's lots of different form options, but Google Forms is nice and integrated with your Gmail. Google Docs and Sheets nowadays have become very important, particularly as we are all working remotely. It's another collaboration tool. So why do you want to use Docs and Sheets? You can work together in real time. So for folks who haven't used Docs and Sheets before, it's very interesting how you can both simultaneously be typing in the same document. That comes in handy because you do not want to be certain documents, you don't want to be emailing back and forth. You can actually both update it simultaneously. So for example, I work with students at Future 5 on their college application essays. And as they send them to me for review, when they send them in Google Docs, I can real time write questions, ask things, follow up with them, and they can make the corrections and I can see them. So it saves on time and emailing back and forth, and we can see what's happening. And when I do the demo, I'll open up two windows side by side so you can see how the two different cursors look, so you'll know who's updating where. It does help to reduce confusion with older versions of files. What you can find is sometimes someone sends you a file at 10 o'clock this morning, there might have been some changes, and then you get another version of the file at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and then now there can be some confusion because you may have opened up the older version, now there's a newer version, and then now we have to combine all those changes. So if you're using Google Docs and Sheet where you're making the changes in real time, it cuts down on some of that confusion and email traffic. It also minimizes the risk of lost emails. I know many times it's happened to me, I send an email and it goes into the black hole of the universe, of the internetverse, and you're like, where'd my email go? You have it as a sent email and it was never received, so this helps cut down on that. And then you can only share it with who you need to share it with. So you can create privacy around this. So what that, and when we get into the demo again, I'll show you this. What that means is you can specify specific emails and only those emails have access to the document or the sheet, or you can set it up where there's a link. So if anyone who has that link can have access. The good news is you can change that at any time and make the document private again. If you've had changes in your teams and you don't want to share access with everyone anymore because now there's been a shuffle, you can take care of that very quickly so that that information remains private. And just to be clear, Google Docs is similar to Microsoft Word for those folks who are familiar with the Microsoft products. It's a Google version of it. It doesn't give you all of the same capabilities in terms of formatting, but it's very close. And Google Sheets is very similar to Microsoft Excel. Again, same concept. It looks about the same, but the formatting features are slightly different and not as expansive. And so while I jump into the demo, do we have any questions, Bob?
And Nalini, we just have one at this point in time on Google Forms, and the question is, how do you get it to someone? Is it online or is it an email attachment?
It's online, and you would email them the link to the form. And so we'll show that in a second.
Okay, and there's one more. Is the Google Suite, including what you just talked about with Sheets and Docs, is it free or is it paid?
This is all free. The entire Google Suite is free. Docs, Sheets, Gmail, Calendar.
Okay. And you'll likely cover this question maybe in your demo. It says, how do you send Docs or Sheets to multiple Google accounts as a document without sending a link?
I don't believe that you can send it as an actual document like you would with Microsoft Word. I believe you have to send it as a link. We can play with it, but my understanding is the only way to access it is through the link because everything is in the cloud.
Okay, that's great. Well, actually, we do have a couple more. Does Google have a Dropbox type feature? And is the Google Form free?
Yes, the Google Dropbox type feature is called Google Drive. And yes, all of it is free. Google Drive is free, Dropbox is free. The only where they start to charge you is when you reach capacity. So right now, this is a new email I created for the demo purposes, and it's brand new, so I'm using 0%. But my other email you'll see is close to capacity.
That's great. Well, that's all we have for now. So maybe we'll come back. A reminder to people, you can submit them at any time, and we'll take them after the demo here. All
right. So going right into the demo. So right now, this is how your Gmail interface looks. I've logged in already. So I'm assuming you just go to mail.google.com or gmail.com to either sign up for a new account or log into your account. For those who may have multiple accounts like I do, over here, just to show you where you go. So straight across the screen, all the way to the upper right, there's an N in the corner here. If I click on that N, here are different email accounts logged into this browser. So right now I have 4 logged in, but this is the account that's currently active, which is the active in the screen that I'm looking at. When you want to start a new email, you just move over to the left side of your screen, you click compose, and I'm going to email myself on my other email. There it is, hit enter. So now the email is valid. New email. And as I start to email myself, this one, because it's a new email, some of the Smart Compose isn't yet created. So it's saved the draft automatically and it hasn't started filling in all the details because it's a new email. Google hasn't learned my writing pattern and things like that. And then you just click send. Before I click send, I want to show you one other feature that was enabled in recent months. Google now allows you to schedule your send. So if you click the little down arrow here where it says more send options, it says schedule send. So that means that I can schedule this email to go tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, Monday morning. This comes in handy for me in particular. Like sometimes on the weekends, I may be answering emails, but I'm actually trying not to be working on the weekends, so I can schedule them all to send on Monday at 8 a.m. Or if I'm up late at night sending emails, those are times that you may want to schedule it, or there's something time sensitive, or you only want it to be sent as a reminder. There are many reasons why this might come in handy. So you pick your date and time. So right now I want it to go at, let's just make this 12:20. So 2 minutes from now. Click schedule send, or it's an invalid time. It's not far enough into the future, I guess. That work? There we go. It's 1 hour into the future. And over here on the left, there's now a folder called scheduled. And there it is. So suppose I change my mind or I got the time wrong. I can click on it, click cancel send, and it's now reverted to a draft email so I can actually send it live if I wanted to. And now I've sent it. Other things that are showing up here is, like, as I mentioned before, when you hover on the email, there's a bunch of things that show up over here on the right. So here we have archive, delete, mark as read, or snooze. So earlier I mentioned in the presentation the snooze feature. So the snooze feature, you can have this email pop up in your inbox again later today. So for example, if I want this to show up at 6 p.m., these are default times that Google assumes that you might want to know about it. or you can pick a time again of your preference that would be most convenient for it to pop up again. So I'm going to click cancel here and just snooze this for later today at 6 o'clock. So it's gone from my inbox, but over here on the left, there's a folder. It says inbox, starred, and snooze. If you click snooze, here's where you would see all emails that you have snoozed with the time that it was snoozed for, in this case, 6 p.m. today. Any questions on that so far?
There's no, Nili, there's no questions directly on that feature, but there is a couple of that have come up on email, so it might be valuable to take those now.
Sure.
There's one here on, can you have an email signature stored?
Yes. So it's a good question because we're going to go into the settings next. What are the other two, Bob?
It says, do I have a limit using the schedule send? So if you're scheduling them, is there any limit on the number of emails that you can schedule?
I've not yet seen a limit. That's not to say there isn't one, or Google might not impose one to try to charge later. But as far as I know, there isn't one right now.
Okay. And well, we can come back to these if you want, or you can take them now. They're not directly related to email. This question is, I assume Google Doc resides on the cloud, and what security does it have? Can a Google Doc be encrypted for confidential information like medical or financial or other personal information?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't have that answer right now, but it's something we can follow up on. I know a lot of the security, so Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of the security around that would be the same level of authentication that you have with Gmail and your calendar, like that level of login, username, password. In terms of security for HIPAA and those type of things, we'd have to do some further research. But my assumption is that it probably isn't HIPAA compliant as you would have with other specific software that's meant for that.
Okay, that's great. Here's a formatting question that comes from, how do you get the display on the left to stay open? Mine keeps minimizing or narrowing.
It's a good question. I actually get that question a lot, and I believe it's probably in the settings. Well, as we go into the settings, because it's actually interesting, because this email, one of my emails, it stays open and the other one, it stays closed, and I've actually never looked at how do I fix it? So maybe it's in the settings. So we're going to go in there right now, actually.
Okay.
Oh, actually, here we go. Display density. That's probably the answer to the question. The very first button. Here we go. So display density gives you, so this is actually your email view, not the bar on the left, but it can show you your emails as they're stacked. So the default view will show the emails with attachments underneath so that you can see within that email chain, there's an attachment here. This little green plus is actually your Google Sheets view. This one is a Google Doc. So this is the indicator that a Google Sheet or a Google Doc is attached, but it's really attached via the link. The comfortable view just shows you the actual just paperclip over here on the right, so you know there's an attachment. And then the compact view is just a tighter view of that. So there's less spacing between your emails. As you can see, this is spaced out a little more. That's tighter. I personally like the default view because then I get to know what's actually attached to these emails, because sometimes it's easy to miss things. And so let's look at your settings. So here with your settings, you can set lots of different things, right? Default behavior as in reply all or just reply. You can send and archive all your emails or hide and archive them. And there was a question about signature. Before we get there, here is your Smart Compose right here. It's a little bit midway through your settings, and it's usually defaulted to on. You can have this turn off if you don't like it. Some people do not like it. And for those who have Android phones or are using the Gmail app on their iPhone, Smart Compose will take whatever setting is here and work also on your phone. Personalizations are on and off. So again, this is personalized to your writing style. I personally like it because it figures out the way I write. So it does make it easier. It's less correcting. Here's the conversation thing that we talked about, whether or not you want to keep all replies as a single conversation or if you want them off. Again, I like them together. Other people may want them off because it can get confusing when you get 6 and 7 emails in. Here are your nudge reminders. So suggest emails that you need to reply to or suggest emails that you need to follow up on. Again, Some folks might find this annoying and will turn this off. Smart replies. So this is showing suggested replies. We see this sometimes now in text messages. You get a text message, and at least on my Android phone, I get a pop-up with suggested responses that I can, from the drop-down or menu bar, respond without actually having to type anything. Same goes with emails. I have it turned on, but I don't use it very often, simply because I find that they can be a little too curt for my liking, and I prefer to actually write a proper email. You can have desktop notifications turn on and off. You can see it's actually popped up down here trying to ask me, and I haven't decided yet if I want it on or off. When you turn it on, you will get noises and things like that. I tend to turn that off because it can be distracting, and I like to check my email at certain times a day as opposed to every time I hear a ding. Again, lots of other controls, but I wanted to come down here to the signature section. So right now this email has defaulted to no signature, but I can turn it on, and I can then say, or however you like it. You do get formatting features here, bold, indents, and other things. If you're a business owner, there are tools on the internet that will create a graphic designed looking signature for you, and then you would come here and paste it so that it looks very professional, almost like a business card. Insert the signature before the quoted text. I like this one particularly as you start to respond to emails. What you'll find is that if you don't turn this on, if you're responding to an email chain in the middle of the email, it depends your signature at the bottom of everything. And what you really want it to show up is right under what you're writing. So you want to make sure you turn this on. And when you're done with everything, you click Save Changes. And we're back to our inbox. So if I were to do a compose right here, now here is my defaulted signature. And if you'll notice, I did it on purpose. There was an extra space in the front just to show you that in case that you actually, if you anything you typo in your signature will show up the same way. So in this case, I had an extra space there, and then there's no space here. And so that I did that on purpose to just show you that however you put it is however it'll show up. And as far as when we mentioned the show before quoted text, so if I click Google, and let's say I want to reply to Google, we know this is going nowhere, but just to show you, if I click reply, here is my signature showing up before the actual email I'm responding to, which is called the quoted text. If you don't click that button, as I mentioned, this will have showed up all the way down here, which is useless in my opinion, because your signature is nowhere near your response. And again, for those who are not familiar with Gmail, if you decide that I don't really want to send this email, this is useless, you can click trash up here, or the delete button's down here. And now it's gone. Before we move out of Gmail and into Calendar, any questions on Gmail, Bob?
Yeah, there's one that's, I think, pretty relevant. It's,
sure.
This person says, I have a Yahoo account with 100 folders, and how can I migrate over to Gmail and receive both emails into one Gmail account?
You can do one of two things. You won't necessarily be able to bring over your past emails from your Yahoo. You'd have to forward them all. And if you do forward them all, what ends up happening is the from emails will all be you. They won't be the originator. And so if that doesn't confuse you and you want to do that, you can do that, but you have to manually forward them. Google's foldering system is not the greatest. So if you like the foldering method, Yahoo is almost better. With Google, they have what are called labels, not necessarily, so you have the important label here. They have created the drag and drop. So if I were to create a new folder, and they call it create new label. So it's a test folder. We're gonna call it a folder because I also like folders. There it is, right? And then let's say I wanted to take this email and put it in this folder. You can click the email and drag it. So now it's in the test folder as opposed to my inbox. Now, it is a manual thing that you have to click and drag. It doesn't do things as nice as Yahoo does, where you can just move it. You can create rules. That's a bit more complex. You would create your rule here using the advanced feature. So from to has attachments, you filter it, and then that's like more of an advanced feature. And if you wanted to email me offline, I can walk you through that. Or you can just Google it. There's lots of steps online of how to do that. But to go back to the foldering system in Gmail is not as robust as Yahoo's foldering system.
Okay, I think that's it on email, except for the original question on the display on the left side, which you thought was in settings. Is there?
Yeah, we'll have to follow up on that one. And if you, Bob, if I can always email that person on the side if they need to, that may take me a while to dig around where the feature is because I've never looked into how to minimize it or keep it open. It's either defaulted and I've left it.
Okay, well, maybe I could just ask Angela, the person who posed that question, to email you directly so that she can be in contact with you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can go on.
All right. So here we have Google Calendar. So I wanted to show you, so this is my business calendar. The reason that I wanted to show it to you in this view is you can see there's a couple different things in different colors. And what I've done is I've actually given myself access to my other calendars so that I can see things on one view. So my personal email can see emails from my business calendar, which are in the orange, as you can see the color down here, and I can turn them off so I can only see just those. Turn those on, or just those if I want to turn those on. There's lots of other things you can enable over here on the left, which are reminders. I don't use the reminders feature. I actually use a reminders app. I find that more efficient for myself. There are things like tasks. Again, it's turned on here, but I don't use it for Google. I use a project management tool to do that. One of the things I want to show you, so if I went here, this is my blank email for the new account, and I create over here on the left with Google, everything's over on the left. New invitation. I did it like this just so that I can see where it went. You click event, reminder, or task. So if you wanted to set a reminder for yourself, you can then have it go off here. One of the things that Gmail does not do well with reminders is setting the reminder on the reminder. So if you miss your reminder, it doesn't necessarily bring it back to the top the way it snoozes other things or nudges you on other things. This is why I use a reminders app that can do that. If you create a task, you can do that though, and it can send you an email, and there's a whole task application, which we're not covering today. But if we were to just stick to an event, I pick the date and time. So today at 12, or that was actually yesterday. So today at 1 p.m., which is right after this, I'm going to invite myself. And it's defaulting. See, it's picked up my email because I've already emailed it. It's in my contacts from my email I just sent. You can see a guest availability. Not everybody has this turned on. So you don't necessarily, this will not necessarily give you the same type of transparency that you're looking for, because not everybody has the ability for you to see their calendar turned on. If I were to add a location and conferencing, here's where I can type in a physical location. And because I'm on the internet, it's searching. And as I'm typing, here's the Ferguson Library. If I wanted to add conferencing, this email, Google Hangouts, is configured. On other emails, I've configured Zoom. And to do that, I had to do a quick Google, Zoom, Gmail integration, and they walked me through the steps to configure it. You add your description here. And then again, formatting and everything, just like you would in a regular email, bold, italics, things like that. You have more options, which when you click more option, it brings over everything that you just did. Just checking to see what there are. Here's where your notifications can be customized. So this is defaulting to 30 minutes before send a notification reminder. You can reduce this all the way down to 1 minute, or you can increase it all the way to several weeks. So for example, there's many reasons why that might come in handy. And then you can also have it set as an email if you wanted to, instead of a pop-up notification. Over here on the right is where you add more guests. So you just keep typing the emails in and hitting enter in between. And then you can give guest permissions to either invite others, to see who's all been invited, and to modify the event. I tend to turn these off guest list you can keep on so people know who's been invited. But I generally don't like other people to invite other people to my meetings unless maybe it's a virtual hangout with the times we're living in right now. And I tend to not allow my guests to modify my events because I want to be able to control what level of details are in the actual invite. So if I click save, it will ask me if I'd like to send the invitation to Google Calendar guests. I can either dismiss it, which brings me back to this screen in case I want to still edit. Click save again. I can click don't send, and what that means is I'm creating this invitation, but the guest will not get an invitation. I can't think of too many situations where that might be necessary. Perhaps you're just making a note for yourself and you don't want them to get an invitation. I always click send so that the person I'm inviting actually has the calendar invite on their calendar as well with all the necessary details. And then again, it's going to ask me about permissions and settings because your calendar permissions are slightly different than your Gmail permissions. So I'm going to click dismiss on this right now. And again, dismiss. There we go. Just to show you up here on the right is where your settings menu is. And again, settings, just like in every other thing. The most important thing here is when you're trying to share your calendar with yourself or with other people, this is where you would start to set those type of notifications. If you click add calendar, it's actually export. If I want to export my calendar or share it, here's where you can start to do that. This gets a little complex and this could be a more advanced class, but just want to show you where you would do some of that. I'm going to hop over to Google Forms. So are there any calendar questions, Bob? Okay, I'm going to assume no. All right. So if we go to Google Forms, it's forms.google.com.
Nalini, sorry, I was muted. We do have some questions, and
go ahead.
Actually, before we get into there, and we had a couple of late ones on email that maybe it'd be better to take before we move on as well.
Sure.
So I'll just quickly give those. On the email, it's how do you view all unread messages consecutively without the emails that you've read interspersed?
You would, and I'm actually going to go to my other email. Hold on, sorry. The Zoom thing keeps coming down and I can't see. So this is where the emails are coming in, right? And here was the email I sent myself, the test. Mark all is read, and I believe it's here. Hold on, I'm just checking because that's not a feature I use often. Let's see if it just label unread. Here we go. So you start to type in the word unread and it gives you the label unread. And here are all my unread emails. And if I start here with the very first one, this is the invitation I just sent myself, right? With my responses so I can say yes, no, maybe. And up here where it says one of about 146 unread emails, you click this arrow and it takes you to the next one in line. So now it's 2 of 146, 3 of 146, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just another question on what are the headings for email? What are the primary, social, and promotions? Can you just talk a little bit about those?
So actually, let's go back to this other email. So primary, social, and promotion. So primary is where Google has determined these are all important. So for example, like I just emailed myself, these are all coming from myself, right? You can see things from Google Voice. And because I've responded to things from SCORE or open SCORE emails, Google has moved this from the promotions folder over to my primary mailbox. Now, what that means is that your promotions folder is where it puts things that it looks like mass emails. They're coming from MailChimp, Constant Contact. These are all different subscriptions that I've been part of that I've tried to unsubscribe from and I still get more, things like that. So what it's trying to do is take the noise out of your primary mailbox because we do get a lot of junk mail, unfortunately. I mean, yesterday alone, April 20th, right? If you keep going, it's actually not a lot compared to what I used to get. So, but it's still a screen's worth of email that would have showed up in my primary mailbox if Google didn't filter it. Again, that's Google's learning algorithm. So things like Geico, even though we know that goes to mass mailers, because I regularly open emails from Geico, it's moved it from the promotions folder to my primary folder automatically. Your social folder, mine is currently empty because I tend to empty particularly the social folder every day. This is where things from LinkedIn, Facebook, all your social media platforms, Meetup, they end up in this folder. Google automatically goes, those are social related, social media related, and it sticks it in this particular folder. I literally just go through and delete this folder every day just because I get the notifications in the apps, so I don't necessarily need the emails to go with it. So those are the 3 tabs, and those are the default 3 tabs. There's lots of questions on the internet around whether or not you can change those tabs and things like that. It's like I said, going back to the Yahoo example, not as easy as with other softwares.
Okay. And one last question on email. And this person is saying, sometimes I can't find my emails because I have them grouped together by conversation. So any tips on how to find them when you're using that feature?
If you could figure out what some keywords are in the email, then you can start to search. Unfortunately, I have the exact same problem. What I like to do is, particularly when the subject is changing, I try to start a new chain so that, and create meaningful subject lines. When they start to get jumbled up, it can get messy, especially as you get into, so for example, this one said the number here, see these tiny little numbers? These are indicating how many messages are in the chain. So because Google has grouped these conversations, there's 4 here, there's 12 there. If we go down, not so many nested here, but these 2 particular are showing you how that looks. So if I was looking for something from Budley right now, I'm not sure if it's in that one or where it is, because that's not helpful because of the way the notification is. So it's just about creating meaningful subject lines.
Okay. We're going to jump into some calendar questions now. And the first one is, my boss has access to my work calendar. If I link my personal calendar, would he see that too?
No. So what you will do, it's really your view. So for example, here, as you can see, this calendar can only see this invite that I just sent to myself, right? But on this calendar, here's the new invitation that I haven't even responded to yet, and other things. So this email can see it, but this one cannot. So this is, again, permission level. It's per person permission level. So that means that until you give them access to see it, they can't see it. Now, if you put your personal stuff directly on your work calendar, then yes, your boss will see it. But if it's just a view setup, which in this case, like I said, turning off the view, if this is the only view, actually it's this. So if this is your business calendar and this is the view your boss have, they should not see these events. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yep, I think that's perfect. Here's a clarification question. Is Google Calendar the same as Gmail Calendar?
Yes. Yes, they are. Probably just a different nuance of how you would name it.
Okay. And while we're in Calendar, where can I turn the on-off my availability on the calendar? Like, is there a way that you can turn your availability on and off?
Sort of. The easiest way to do it, I find, is to actually block your calendar. So I will show you. I'm going to scroll back a couple weeks because this one's not set up the same way. So on a quarterly basis, I tend to set up my calendar like this, where I have, if you can see the gray bar here, that's a client meeting day, which means this day is open for people to book time on my calendar. But this day here is not open. It's an admin work day, and I've marked it orange because I've marked myself busy. Here it says private, but I've actually, because of how this is how I'm seeing things back and forth between the 2 calendars. But the best thing you can do is actually just block the time. So I've literally had to put lunchtime in on my client meeting days so that I can have lunch. And I've set it as a 2-hour block, knowing that something is going to run late and something may start early. So in the end, I probably end up with an hour. The easiest way to do it is to literally just block the time.
Okay. There's a question here. It's after the demonstration that you just did on email, where you said after you see all unread, how can you return to the default order?
Yeah. So if I go back to the other email and I do unread, start typing here, and I use the label. To go back to the default view, you just click your inbox again over here on the left, and it clears it out. So now you're back to your default view. Or another option is up here, you can just click this X where it says clear search. But then then you have to hit enter again, and it can get a little dicey. So then you just click inbox and you're right back to your inbox.
Okay. And any tips on using Gmail to stop spam?
Sorry, I have to laugh because if someone can figure that out and tell me, I would love to know myself, given that there are my promotions folder has 9,046 emails in them that I've just given up on right now.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is when you go into the email, so like for example, Barnes & Noble, up here there's a button that says unsubscribe. Don't use that button. Go all the way down to the bottom of the email and where it says view entire message, because this one's incredibly long. Find the very bottom of the email and there should be an unsubscribe in the footer right here. Companies are legally required to have that unsubscribe button. If you use this button that's in the email, you're more likely to actually get unsubscribed. If you're using just the Gmail unsubscribe, because a lot of iPhone users run into this because Apple does it too. It's kind of Google trying to unsubscribe you, but it doesn't work the same as if you actually go here, because this is notifying the mailing program, MailChimp, Constant Contact. Those are some generic default ones that you should be completely unsubscribed. And legally they're supposed to comply. That doesn't always work though.
Okay, great. I think in the interest of time, we should move on here.
Okay, so I'm going to do these last ones really quickly. They're pretty straightforward. So I went to forms.google.com, and unfortunately we ended up at it does say docs.google, so don't feel confused. But just to show you again, I'm going to close this tab and reopen it and type in forms, if I spell it correctly, .google.com. It'll redirect you, but don't worry about that. This is where you want to be. The indicator is the little purple piece of paper over here, the image, that is forms. And if I clicked down here in the lower right, I've got to create a new form and I've got choose a template. So if I were to choose a template, here's some pretty common ones that people use. So for example, we mentioned that you might use it to find a time. So if I click find a time, it's all pre-filled with some color, some template, and this is where you start to customize it. This can be easier for you or later, and we can say, we need to get together to talk about some meeting times, and we can say, next book club meeting, because sometimes book clubs need to do that. The person does need to enter a valid email address. Now, because I'm creating it, I can't type in this box because that's defaulted. Here we have times that they're available, so they can then pick from it. And this is all pre-filled. So again, you can then customize them by clicking on it. If you're like, I don't need this question, right? There's a little trash icon to delete it. And then let's say you're like, oh, wait a minute, let me undo that. And you're like, I actually needed to duplicate that instead. So sometimes the hover doesn't work as well. So if I click out of it and click back in, here we go. This icon right here, which looks like the copy icon, is really the duplicate, and this can be new question. And let's say if you need it to be a required, so they must answer this question, click this button here to make it required. You can change the type of answer to multiple choice. File upload, so this could be for if you're trying to receive documents from someone, a multiple choice grid, which is this one above here, date and time, and things like that. And again, this was pre-made so that you can see how it looks. Your responses are here. So it's just questions on the left, responses on the right. So as long as the form is live where it says accepting responses, you can turn that off at any time. So if you're done collecting responses and this form is no longer needed, you can turn that off. And here, this form is particularly still waiting for responses. And then this spreadsheet right here where it says create spreadsheet, when you click it, right, it says create a new spreadsheet for find a time. And it opens up a Google Sheet. And so as the form is filled out, you can see all the responses chronologically right here in your spreadsheet, your Google Sheet. So if I come back here, I mentioned in the presentation up on the upper right, there's an eyeball here that says preview. And when you click preview, you can see how the form looks. And you got a couple more minutes, so I'm gonna do just, because I wanna move fast so that we don't lose time. I'm gonna do docs.google.com. And this is where you will actually see, like, so these are Google documents, and I actually have, so you can see there's a Word doc that's been uploaded in here. These are things that have been shared with me, so you can see who owns these documents versus if I own them. So if I were to create a new document down here, so Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Forms, the template is more or less the same. Down in the lower right, you click create. You title your document here. And you can start typing right here, right? We mentioned how do you share with different people. So this document, I just want to show you, when I click on my face over here, because I have my picture uploaded, this document is owned by this email account. I'm going to give permission to my other email account just so you can see it side by side. So if I click share, it defaults to private only to me. I just want to just show you that again. Right here, when you hover, this is private only to me. So I'm the only one that can see this document because it's mine. When I click share, I can do one of two things. I can enter my name, the email that I want to send it to, Indian.dance. I actually don't remember the email name. Let's do it the other way. Indian.dance.ct. So share this too. And I'm giving this little pencil here, gives me the ability to edit, comment, or view. So sometimes you might not want them to be able to edit it. You only want them to be able to view it or comment on it. In this case, I want to give edit to it. And then of course you'd want to send the notification so they actually get an email with the link. The other way you can do this, as we mentioned earlier, is to get the shareable link. So anybody who has this link can view the document or can edit it or can comment, or if you turn it off, only specific people can access. That goes back to this section down here. So I'm going to turn this off and only allow specific people to access it. So this is to someone else's question earlier about how do I make sure that other people don't get access to it. Make sure you're only giving access to who you want to give access to. So I'm going to just click send here really quick. And I'm actually going to change this just so I can, in the interest of time. So if I take this link right now, I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to do a side-by-side window view so that you can see how this works. So just click send there. And then I'm going to open a new window, put it over here. So I've just pasted the link for this document over here. And I want to change this to the other email account. This is a little complicated way of just showing you, only because I'm trying to show you how two people can be in the document at the same time. So I'm currently signed in as IndianDanceCT at Gmail. And as you can see here, one person has a green cursor, one has a pink cursor. So if I'm typing over here, it's like, I am typing from the right. I am typing from the left. And what you can see, and I spelled left all completely incorrectly, but as I can see, I can actually correct the spelling for the one that was typed on the left, and I can correct the spelling for the one that was typed on the right. So as you can see, there's a cursor. Now, normally you're in here with two different people that have two different names, as opposed to me being in here with two of the same names. Google Sheets works exactly the same way in terms of two people being able to collaborate simultaneously. Sharing works the same on Google Sheets. So just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into it right now, other than to just show you the link, sheets.google.com. And here are all the sheets that we've created, and that find a time response we just did for that one. And it looks just like Microsoft Excel, minus the headings are a little different. Bob, I see some questions popping up.
Yeah, we have a question on the forms. Is there a way to put in your own branded and/or customized forms?
Yes. So what you would do is when you're, so this is a preview mode. If I switch it over, when you're over here under the questions section and you start to go through, you would look at your settings, which is your gear icon. Here you can actually customize some of it. Google moves stuff around sometimes. So here you can, if you actually want to make it a quiz, and here's the customize theme button. This is where you're going to upload your own image for the header, or you can pick from what they already have. If I want to change that to bubbles, I can do that. And then if I want to put in, you know, since now Google's kind of gone, all right, let's change your whole color palette to purple because you've gone with the purple. So if you upload your own branded image up top, it'll do the same for you. And again, that's the paint palette button right here.
Okay, that's great. There's a couple on the calendar that we didn't have time for, so I'm going to loop back to those. And if people have a couple last questions, we do have a couple of minutes
okay.
there. So, the one question was, could you go over again how to get to setting up your calendar?
Oh, so you go to calendar.google.com, and mine's pre-filling because I go there often. And in this case, it'll actually default to whatever your primary Gmail is. So in this case, my Ngulsaran account is my primary Gmail. And because I'm using the Google Chrome browser and I'm logged in right here to the Ngulsaran account, that's why this defaults. So whatever Gmail is your primary Gmail or your primary login on Chrome is what your calendar will automatically log into. So there isn't any setup necessarily needed or sign up. It's once you have a Gmail, then you have an associated calendar.
And okay, couple of question on the sheets. Can you upload an Excel spreadsheet to Google Sheets?
Yes, it'll show up similar to, I've lost the view now, but if I go to docs, or I think if I go to sheets.google.com, here's where all the different spreadsheets are. So these are all Google Sheets, but there's actually an Excel in here. So this one says XLSX, so that's a Excel spreadsheet. And if I were to open it, I can only view it, or it converts it to a Google Sheet.
Perfect. One on Zoom that we didn't have time to get to, and maybe you could say a little bit more, because you did talk about integrating Zoom with your calendar. Do you have you mentioned you Googled it, I think. Do you have a resource where people could go to learn how to do that integration between Zoom and their Google Calendar?
I think I literally just Googled Zoom for Gmail. So if you just do Zoom for Gmail. And so it's part of the G Suite Marketplace. So it's a Zoom, and there's another one, Zoom Help Center Gmail add-on. That's probably the one you want to go to, the Gmail add-on in the Zoom Help Center. And so just to show you how it looks, if I go back to my calendar, this calendar where it's actually enabled, if I click to create new, and I did more options so that you can see it all in one view. Under conferencing, when I click add conferencing, when I click Zoom meetings, see if I'm logged in. There it is. So it's automatically created the Zoom meeting with the link. I don't have to do anything. And the best part about this is that if at a later time, I actually, when I want to start the meeting, so for example, at 2:30 today, I have this meeting. I just click join Zoom here. I'm not going to do it since I'm in a Zoom, and it will open up my Zoom and log me in as the host without me having to go to Zoom and start from there. So if it's easier just because you're already in your calendar, you can do that. And I said the best way to find that again is in the Zoom Help Center.
Okay, that's great. One last question, and then that's all we have time for, is how can I combine my Google Calendar with my iPad calendar?
That one you might take a little Googling, and it has to do with how you share permissions, and so it'll show up over here. So it's just a matter of which email are you sharing with the other one? So where do you want to see the display? So in my case, I have shared my business stuff with my personal because I want to see it all on my personal calendar, but I could have done it the other way. So first determine which account you want to be able to view the other account of, so which view you want to see, and then just Google that, because every setup is a little different, and the steps could be a little different. So it's not a one size fits all.
Well, that's great. That's all the time that we have for questions today. As a reminder, there is a recording of this webinar, and the materials will be available within 48 hours on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And Reminder, our next webinar will be this Thursday, April 23rd at noon, and the topic is running a successful creative business, legal, and tax tips with Cliff Enico presenting. And again, if you are wanting free individual counseling, you can visit our website and request a mentor. You can just click on that. And if I could ask you to please fill out your evaluations after this session, they're very helpful to us. So on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank everyone for attending our live webinar today. And a special thank you to Nalini Gulzaram for presenting. Stay well, everyone, and have a nice day.
Bye, guys. Thank you.